So Kim, the first thing that I'll ask you to do, because I know you guys have stuff in place already or have an idea of what you're expecting come the start of the new school year. So can you kind of break that down for me, go over all the details and just kind of what those decisions have, or what decisions have already been made?
We are super excited to have students back on campus. We've been working all summer long to make sure that the campus is safe as possible. We have a task force that was appointed by President Gestring that has been looking at everything to make sure that it's going to be safe. Many things that you'll notice as a new normal when you return to campus is masks will be mandatory. There'll be signage that'll say masks expected, and every faculty, staff, student, and visitor that comes to campus will be expected to wear one. You'll also see decals on the floor showing you how to stay 6 feet apart, as well as signage which will remind you of good hand washing protocols. We have plexiglass that will be in the offices as well as in classrooms to keep people safe. We have new cleaning protocols, so buildings might close an hour early to make sure that we can thoroughly clean the buildings, but we'll still have programming and activities for students all year long.
Fantastic, that was a great answer. So start off with the plexiglass that you were referring to, and not only just in the offices, but in the classrooms as well. What will that kind of look like, and will it also kind of factor into social distancing in a way of separating students, or will they sit kind of right next to each other but with the plexiglass in between?
Each of our classrooms will have plexiglass that the faculty member will stand behind, and the students will be socially distanced 6 feet apart, but they still will be wearing masks, so the classrooms will be as safe as possible.
Will they be allowed to wear face shields as well, or is mask, like a true mask, the mandatory one?
Students will be able to use face coverings. They received an email this morning that can include a mask, a bandana, a face shield, or any other covering.
And I didn't go to a D1 university, but what I do know is at D1 universities, classroom sizes can range from 30 students to 300 students. So with the bigger classrooms, I saw that you guys will offer like a video stream for students that may not feel comfortable coming to class. But do you also think that a lot of students won't show up, just the fact that, you know, being in college, you don't want to go to class, all you want to do is be lazy and maybe just watch from your dorm room?
Sure. Most of our classrooms will take place face-to-face this year, but also they will be recorded, so students that may become sick or may feel like they're sick will be able to watch the lecture on their own.
So you don't think any student will just take advantage of that
Sure,
system? Yeah,
sure.
They probably will.
They will. We want students to be on
Right.
campus and be engaged, though, that's for sure.
Right. So now with the housing, I don't know the exact layout here, but I noticed in your notes that 3 floors will be dedicated to, if somebody were to get sick, that they can quarantine up there. How will that kind of look? Like, will they move their stuff up there? Like, will there be a bed already made? Just kind of take me through that process, and then to add to that, what buildings in particular will have that room?
Let's see, is it Olson 1 and Richardson 3 and 4? Yeah, pretty sure.
Okay.
So we do have 3 floors of isolation quarantine spaces on campus. We'll have Olson 1, Richardson 3, and 4. If a student becomes ill or feel like they have been exposed to COVID-19, we will move them into those spaces. Once they're in those spaces, we will check on them daily. They'll also fill out a survey daily on how they're feeling, as well as what they'd like to eat. So their food and snacks will also be delivered to them.
Great. Happy you touched on lunch, because that was my next question.
Okay.
So in regards to the lunchroom setting, is that off limits? Are all students required to go in, get their lunch, and leave?
We will encouraging students to grab and go their meals, but they will be able to stay and eat if they'd like to. We have fewer chairs and fewer tables. We also have outside dining at the Munster University Center on the 1st and 2nd floor, as well as in the Beacom School of Business.
And I'm assuming they are allowed to take off their masks to eat, but then are required to put it back on when they walk away. Okay, what about if a student does stay, how will social distancing be enforced?
So like I said, that there's just limited tables and chairs. You can kind of see in there.
Okay.
But they can stay, but everything's 6 feet apart.
Okay, great. What if a student is having concerns about a roommate maybe showing symptoms? What's the process that they should take?
If a student is concerned about their roommate, they should certainly talk to their RA and express their concerns. The RA can work with the two students and make sure there's a resolution.
What's the process, though, for someone that is coming onto campus in regards to showing them around, or when they first get here, what are they supposed to do?
When visitors come to campus to the Office of Admissions, they will take you on a Charlie cart and give you a tour of campus.
Will plexiglass be on those carts?
I think they were supposed to be. I don't know if they're there yet.
You mentioned those fun activities that students will still be able to take part in here. What will those kind of look like?
Yeah, we'll have just as many activities as we do any other year. There will be some changes. They might be offered more often. There might be a larger venue, but we want to make sure that our students are out and involved in the campus community.
And with different venues on campus, say a fraternity on campus wanted to host some type of formal in a room, dining ballroom, whatever it is, would it look like a capacity? Like, what would the capacity look like for that?
Right. On campus, each one of our classrooms will have posted the capacity that the room will be able to have. So we know when somebody calls for a reservation, if they have 100 participants, the only place they'll be able to be is in the muck ballroom.
And then, say a teacher were to contract COVID-19, and there were students in his class the day before, would the students also be required to quarantine for that short amount of time? How will they be tested? Do you have any idea on that?
Well, you know, with that, it really depends on how close the faculty member would have been to the students. We're working on contact tracing, but I'm not sure how that they would be.
Okay.
You know, it just depends so much on so many different factors. Yeah, it's case by case.
Right. Now, I know that some high schools have, or some districts rather, have made students sign a COVID liability waiver so that the school isn't responsible. Are you guys going to be doing that?
No, we're not having students sign a waiver.
Okay. What about in regards to instructional hours for the fall semester? How is that broken down? Because I know a lot of colleges are stopping at Thanksgiving. Are you guys going to be doing something similar?
Yes, we will begin our classes on August 19th, and we will end our classes at Thanksgiving face-to-face. Then finals and the last week of classes will be online for our students. We will not recognize any holidays during the semester so that we can end early.
Okay, fantastic. How are you guys going to be monitoring the health of students and teachers in any way, or is that just kind of going to come up on a case-by-case basis?
We do have a safety app that will ask students, faculty, and staff to take a survey each morning with some of the symptoms, with all of the symptoms of COVID-19. We'll have thermometers available in the Munster University Center, in the Wellness Center, as well as in housing to take temperatures of anybody that requires one.
And then I know we're dealing with adults here, but say a student is, or kind of being, not in a way like aggressive, but doesn't want to wear a mask, but it's enforced in all of the buildings. So how will that kind of be addressed to the student, or will you just send them home, or how will that work?
If a student is not wearing a mask, we'll be asking them to put a mask on or some type of facial covering. If they don't comply, they will be sent to the Student Rights and Responsibilities Office. If a student is ill with COVID, or if they've been exposed to COVID, we have a case management team that will manage them daily. They will be checking on them, they will make sure they have their meals, and make sure that they are safe.
Okay. Is there anything else that I'm forgetting? I feel like we've covered a lot of
I feel like you
information.
did too.
And as I went down my highlighted list, I'm like, well, she already answered that. She already answered that. Okay, here's one.
Yeah.
Say an outbreak is, or say there is an outbreak on campus. How will that be defined? Who's going to be tested? Is it all going to come down to that management team that you were just referring to?
Right. Students can get a test at Sanford Medical Center here in Vermillion if they have symptoms.
Yeah, so I guess are you hopeful for this upcoming semester in the time that we're living in?
I'm very hopeful for this upcoming semester. Students will be able to be involved on campus. We have lots of outdoor green space. We've worked really close with the community as well to make sure that mask wearing becomes a priority. We're really looking forward to having the students back, and it's going to be a great semester for our Coyotes.
My first question for you is, since you kind of house the student space area, can you talk about how you're separating different seats, different
Sure.
chairs? I don't know if there's different lounge areas students like to go to, and
Sure.
how they will be able to practice social distancing.
Sure. So managing a space like the Munster University Center is always a unique challenge because this is designed to be the living room of campus. And so what do you do when you have to make your living room a little bit more socially distant? So we've gone through all of our dining spaces and just measured out our tables, and in some cases removed chairs entirely to allow students, as they dine in the building, which they'll still be able to do, allow them to do that in a socially distant environment. So just separating them out, like I said, pulling chairs out of spaces entirely and putting them somewhere else, just so that way we're reducing it that way. In some of our meeting rooms, we've just taken it down to 25% of what the previous max capacity was. So in some cases, a room went from, it could previously hold 25 people to now that's, 5. Yeah, so just kind of changing a lot of that stuff up and looking into it, but we're trying to take those measures across the board in the building because we know socially distancing helps and it works. So
Yeah, how weird do you think it's going to be for students to kind of adjust to that, and do you think it's going to take a little trial and error to enforce that to a lot of these kids?
yeah, that's an awesome question, and yes, I think this is going to be a learning curve. I think we're all going to have to operate this semester with a little bit of grace and use that educational opportunity we have to talk about why it's important, and just like I said, be patient, because at one point in time it will just click and students will figure it out and they'll be able to fall into the routine a little bit more. But for that first few weeks coming back, it's going to be a little bit of a learning curve and it's going to be a little bit tough.
And then a little bit about lunch now, because I know the idea is for them to really get their lunch and leave,
Right.
rather than stick around so they don't flood the lunch area. But
Yep.
I also noticed that there was a Grubhub sign.
Yeah.
Can you kind of go further explain that? And
Sure.
Is it actual students that are delivering food to other students, or how
Sure.
is it working?
So the delivery option is not a part of the contract that we have here at USD. So that it's literally just the order in advance part of that particular module. So what will happen is students, if they are traveling from Slagle and they have a class and they're walking over here and they want to make sure that they get their food, they'll put in their order, it'll pop out at the register, students will be able to pick it up and then they can grab it, and if there is a seat available in the building, they can sit. But again, we encourage them to order in advance so that way we're not having long lines of students congregated in the building. So delivery, not an option. They actually bought out what we previously had, the app we previously had. But an order in advance option to try to drive down lines, which will be really helpful in the environment we're in.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the bike share program.
Sure.
Is that an actual bike that they ride around on? Is it kind
Yeah.
of like the line bikes in a way?
Yeah, it's like a,
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So then, how will you keep things sanitized?
Sure, great question. So for the most part, things will be sitting outside, and from what we know about the virus, it doesn't live very long in this type of open air environment. So we're not as worried about the bikes, but some of the equipment associated with it, that's helmets, if they need to use a bike pump, if they need to, all of the keys that we use that they can check out to check out the bikes, we'll sanitize all of those with a sanitizing solution to make sure all of that stuff stays safe. We'll figure out and have an exchange method for dropping off keys, so that way we're not having hands come close together and touch one another. So we'll put safety measures in place to make sure students are safe. We'll probably reduce the amount of bikes because we usually have about a fleet of about 14 to 16 bikes depending on servicing, things like that. But we'll probably have less bikes out there just so that we would drive down the amount of upkeep that's required. So.
Am I forgetting anything?
what else have we talked about, Doug? I think.
I mean, a big question for a lot of students anyway when they come back is, will I still be able to plan events? Will there still be things for me to do? The answer to that question is yes. We have worked very hard over the course of the summer to plan programs and events and activities for students to do when they come back, so it isn't just head down, walk to class, not have fun. We tried to set it up so that way there are things students can do in person. So during the first week, we'll host a trivia night, we'll host a bingo, taking over the entire first floor of the Munster University Center because everybody can be spread out. For some of our more hands-on tactile programs, some of our mocktails and canvas, things like that, we've pre-packaged all of those supplies so students can do them with us in the building, or they can take them back to their room, whatever they're most comfortable with. So we've set ourselves up to be able to adapt to the situation and so that students can still get the most fun out of their college experience possible.